going to do beer talk?
In a minute. I figured I'd let people keep eating for a minute. So, welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Keep eating for a minute. We'll mention in a couple of minutes. Great to have all of you here who could be here with us tonight. And thank you for starting the evaluation of L.E.A.D. What Worked. I'm sure there is something you can figure out that was missing. So when you can, hopefully we'll take some time at some point to just think about what you still want to learn, so that we can figure that out and so that we can keep improving. Okay, so we've got, I'm sort of sitting, we've got all of our L.E.A.D. folks on this side and then Joni.
I didn't know we were
No, we're not. We were not dividing on purpose. Here comes John. We'll
make him sit over here.
I'm like sit there like that. And just so that you know who we have else here, so everyone probably remembers our two of our mentors who are here, Bill Kleiman and Stu Christie. And of course, well, you all know Weiser, who is our congregational president for how many more hours?
5 more days.
5 more days.
I knew it was counting.
Lois Coteen. And we're privileged tonight to also have Lee Newman, who I'll introduce officially in a few minutes, and Bruce Sanger, who just went to Minion, and then he'll be here as well. John, please come in. So just so you know, our plan for tonight, I wanted to start with a little bit of feedback on a couple of other things, and then we're going to have each of the teams present as a little dress rehearsal, and we've got our mentors and officers here to weigh in, not to critique and criticize too harshly, but to give their opinion, and of course, since they know the nature of the annual meeting, and sort of who shows up to help shape what you're going to say, just so you know ahead of time, wise words from our president. There will be no Q&A at the annual meeting, no official public Q&A. So no one will be, facing any
No
of that
heckling?
kind of stuff. No heckling either. So that's really good. And then at the end, we are privileged tonight to hear from Lee Newman and Bruce Stanger, as I like to say, about the organized, disorganized, and informal parts of the Jewish community. Really about the organized Jewish community, the grassroots Jewish community, and where we all fit in. So that's how we'll end our night, because I think it's important as what we've learned and talked about in terms of Bethel context, the worldwide trends, where does that all fit into the Hartford community, where does Bethel fit into that, how does our vision of the Jewish community, peoplehood, all of those kinds of things, how does that all continue? So just some very brief words of Torah, because it's a great Torah portion to talk about leadership this week. It's a portion of Korach, when a man named Korach, who's actually a Levite, so it's important to know, he has some power. He stands up to Moses and Aaron and he says, what makes you guys so holy? Why do you think that you get to be the leaders? I want to be the leader. Ultimately, there's a little test that's performed with some incense and some fire, and Korach and all of the men that he has brought with him and incited with the rebellion die, and then the best image ever is that the earth opens her mouth and swallows up all 250 of his followers, which is this great image of, you open your mouth in rebellion and look what might happen to you.
Is that for us?
Yes, listen to that as a warning. But I think it's also an important message about leadership. It's not something we're born with. It's not something that comes to you just because of who you are. Here he was a Levite. He could have had it all. It wasn't enough for him. There was something that he wasn't satisfied with, and I really think it's that he wasn't aware of how he might better approach the authority, how he might work within the system, which I know that Bruce is going to talk a little bit about that concept of how we become leaders, not saying, well, I've got this crazy idea and I'm going all over here and everyone's got to follow me, but here's a system, here's the community that we're part of. How could Korach have done that a lot better? And so I think that, ultimately also the message is that we're all holy. Actually, I know that Rabbi Rosen will speak about this in his charge to the Bar Mitzvah boys. There's a little preview. This Shabbat, the question, when Korach says, we're all holy, the question is, are we really all holy? Is that really true? We can become holy. Are we all holy? And I think that we all have that potential to work, to make, to be holy. That's part of our sacred work here together. So I want to thank you all for building a community and being part of a community where hopefully nobody has that need to stand up and say, no, absolutely not, this is not the way we've done it. Although there have been board meetings where we've had to say, and you'll sit down now. Ask Bill Klein one day, the gavel. We don't do this here. But in general, we build a community where we all find some sense of respect and some sense of holiness.
Yashikov.
And it's recorded now. So, brief feedback, since I didn't get to be there and I haven't heard much other than it was great. The David Breisman, I just wanted to bring that conversation into the room for those who were there last time, the CGL event. Any quick comments, feedback, how it was?
I thought it was excellent. I left feeling very energized, both because of what he said and because of our small group, our little Bethel table small group. I thought that was great. One of the things he talked about sort of is like, we don't need any more pessimists, any more skeptics. If you're a skeptic, like, I get it. You've benefited from the system that's in place now, and that's why you're in a position of power. And if you don't want to change the system, I understand, but get off the bus. And you need more people on the bus. And I felt like carrying that analogy or that metaphor, like I felt like we had lots of good people on the bus, and it was good. I thought I had lots of good ideas. I also felt not that it's us versus them because we're all one big Jewish community, but some of the things I heard from other organizations that were there made me concerned for those organizations. But what I heard coming out of the mouths of the people who were representing our temple, I felt very positive about what they were saying.
Bless you.
Oh, that was great. I was really excited about it. He had a lot of good points.
He was an excellent speaker. He was thought-provoking. He got the crowd involved, got us thinking. And from his appearance, I didn't expect what came out of him. You guys would probably agree. And when you first saw him, he was kind of like, didn't have the appearance of a polished speaker, let's put it that way. But once he spoke, man, he was on. And he knew his subject extremely well. And he needs to go around the country telling the same story because it's a nationwide issue.
And it would be interesting to have him, speak to the congregation or to the leadership as a whole. I mean, obviously the people who were there were a specific group of type of people, and it's not everyone who needs to hear that message.
And he had a great Australian accent.
That's
You
can read the phone book.
Right.
It just sounds good.
Anything surprising?
I think we had talked about a lot of what he said, so we sort of had an inside track. I felt like.
Yeah, I felt like what I felt was great is he really was reinforcing some of the things that we've expressed in our small groups or in our large group. And I also thought, since he's not from this community, if he looked around, he would have been like, wow, Bethel must be the biggest thing in this area because there's 2 full tables in Bethel, and there were.
And you probably shifted the demographics a little bit too.
Yes.
Yes.
We definitely
He referenced some things that some of us looked at each other and had no idea what he was talking
Oh,
about.
it's called a record player, is that?
The coins that you would use in Israel to call on the phone.
Asimon.
Yes, I had no idea.
Show off.
And then what were the mail things?
Oh, the blue
It's
Oh,
folded and you have to lick the.
Yeah.
They don't have
I
that.
know what they are.
I had no idea.
Another quote.
Jesse and I were like, locked in.
Another quote that he talked about was, or asked people about, were like famous Jewish people historically. So, first he was talking about people like we would identify Jerry Seinfeld and people like that, but then all of a sudden he started pulling back some names from a lot further ago. And it's kind of interesting to hear some of that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
And he also kind of tried to take people out of their comfort zone and made them, think beyond just how they normally would, which was a good thing.
Yeah. One of the exercises, the main exercise he had us do, you list as many resources as what are you? And how do you do what you want to do with what you have and without what you don't have? And so it just sort of shifted. For our small group, I think we took out members. So we,
Oh, no, you're a different group.
right. So we sort of narrowed it by saying we still had people, but we didn't have, dues paying members. We didn't have a database of addresses and phone numbers and that kind of thing. And how would we, it's the questions of, we need to engage differently. We need to be in the community differently. We need to, but it was all things that we had talked about. It was good.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing all that. So, like I mentioned a minute ago, we've got the evaluations up there. Anyone feel like you want to bring anything into this room about the process? And I want you to really, you don't have to do this now, but I do just want to invite as much evaluation as you can offer at some point from the mentoring program. You don't have to talk about them, I know they're in the room. Talk about you later, guys. To the process of joining committees, to the things we did here, all of that up for debate, change, feedback.
If we do this again, we really truly need your feedback in order to make it a better program. So while we would like to think that everything went perfectly, there are certainly things that you must feel could have been done differently. So please share that with us.
You know what could help going forward? I know scheduling is always the hardest thing. And I know it was hard enough for you to get everybody to be able to make most of these, was it 6 sessions that you scheduled? But if somehow they were already pre-scheduled, the times, those working times for the groups? For the groups to meet, because sometimes that was really hard to figure that out. But if that was also scheduled in as, because that really is part of the commitment to this plan, is having that time to work together. So if some, even people met here and just sat in different areas, or meet at other places, but
Sure.
just that it was a commitment up front.
Right.
But it's, I know it's hard to commit.
No, that's
6 is hard, and then if you make 8 or
Right.
10, that's
Yeah.
harder.
On the same note, I thought it was kind of short, actually. This whole thing went really quickly. So it could be extended a little bit longer. I know we got it started probably a little bit later than maybe you will in the future.
Right, that was all because we
Yeah.
created this with the grant, but our hope, and we've actually put in the budget for next year, is that we would hopefully get the grant also, but if we don't get the grant, we can hopefully support it and run it for a year.
Yeah.
Or at least.
I agree. I
I
feel like our group needs a little extra time to.
I
before
agree.
presenting.
I agree as well, I'm not done.
Yeah, our group is going to continue,
Our
I mean,
plan
we're
is
gonna
to keep
continue
going
also.
after this, so whether or not it's built in, I mean, we definitely
Yeah.
needed more time to implement what we wanted to do.
Okay, we're gonna come back to that in 1 second. Other feedback?
I'm not dissing my mentor. I love my mentor. But now thinking about it, I probably could have reached out and had more meetings. So maybe if that were either at the front end, like we're sort of presented as a, we want you to meet with your mentor throughout, as opposed to just one contact. My one contact was excellent. And we could email, but like if it were more of a once a month, we should meet up or whatever it is. That would be cool.
And I wish we had another session where they were here as well.
Well, so they are here tonight, they just, 3 of them couldn't be here.
Your time.
But Billy and Stu are enough mentor for.
Yeah, maybe too many. Maybe more than you bargained for.
Well, my people are not here. I think we miscommunicated.
Well, my mentor's not here, so you want to.
Yeah, we'll get
Very different. So I'll encourage you to keep that stuff coming. Keep any thoughts, and if you really want it to be anonymous, just write it on the board. I'll leave it to the community. I don't know, send me away. And definitely keep evaluating. So on that idea of we're not done, we have been talking about what's next. And obviously, we have long-term goals for this group and for this program in general. There is no pressure, and you only committed up until June 11th, and then, like I promised everyone when we talked about this, that's all you have to do. But we'd love to know, and you don't have to say anything now or even commit now, but we would like to keep this going. We'd like to continue these projects that you're working on. We'd like to think about other things in the synagogue that, for instance, you know, when I think of the website and everything you're doing on the website, Lydia, and, you know, Lois and I have been talking about, well, wouldn't it be interesting if a cohort of people started to explore other websites and best practices and you know, almost be like some sort of explorative, advisory, looking into things kind of team. But a lot more than that, you know, that we still want to be able to say, we're bringing in this great speaker and you get to have dinner with them. And, you know, I don't think anything that we did this time we would do again. So, not because it wasn't great, but we would do more different things. So maybe it's that we've got LEAD year 2 and in some way the alumni become part of it. So this is all in the very beginning of planning stages because I just didn't know what you all would say. So I'm putting that out there as something to think about, and you can let me know. And it doesn't have to be everybody, but it would be great if it was everybody. And you know, we would figure out what makes the most sense in terms of your lives, and also being involved in lots of other things at Bethel, not making this the primary thing that you're involved in, but having this continue to be a support as you're involved in a committee or coming to events or implementing your program. And to go from there.
Interesting.
Interested?
Yeah.
We'll keep talking. Okay. On that note, let us bench. 42. Actually, I'm sorry. 44. Hold on one more second. I know I'm the rabbi here. 62.
Well, she's not really a rabbi, but she did stay at a holiday.
Let's try 62. Father, I'm Lydia and I were emailing about this today. I think all I will do is get up and basically say, and Carolyn, correct me if I'm wrong, introduce what the LEAD program was and that we've made team projects. Very brief. The key for all of this is very brief. So mentors and officers and distinguished guests, you are all the judges. So help us to make this as focused and to the point and brief as possible.
Is there a time limit for this? Is there a target time?
3 to 5 minutes per group.
How many groups?
4.
So 3 minutes.
I think the president wants to make sure she keeps the floor.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And this group has to go last.
Okay.
Oh, I don't think I'm gonna make it. Oh, we can still go last.
Okay, so, right, and so, anyone want to start? And so what I think you probably want to do is present your, I don't know, your challenge and your solution, your vision.
Okay, but here's the thing, so are we gonna practice also with this AV? I don't know, does anybody know how to use this? Like, do we have the cord that hooks my computer from this to the, try turning it on. I just didn't see the
We'll
cord.
pause for technology.
Is it with the,
By the way, you're allowed to eat a cookie after we're done, so Are you all? It's all fine. It's on. But only the gym you said you had to. Don't worry about it. Ours is all 80.
What's the other movies that you
I don't know.
We hired a consultant. We got Bryce Waterhouse working on ours.
Just talk about it.
Maybe I'll do a post.
Sure, it's all you're gonna be here, why not? Right, show up.
That's huge.
Knows how to.
For example, I just propped it up using a power bar to make sure it's actually, so just technologically, we're gonna have fire. And I know, yeah, I'm sure there's something that.
Can I just say something? I'm not presenting, so let me just preface this by saying, we have not prepared this visual with what Lydia's gonna say at all before, so this could be a total disaster.
Okay.
Okay, but that's why we're doing
Or
it here.
mildly amusing.
It could be,
Carolyn, are you running the timer?
that's
I
exactly.
I will read this off my phone. I left my hard copy with my e-phone.
And I will be sitting in front of you.
Okay. Carolyn, let me know when you're ready. Okay. So we'll start with saying thank you, Rabbi Garber, for your introduction. I'm Lydia Lupp, and I'm representing our group tonight. Looking to the future of Bethel, we were asked to explore how we go beyond warm and welcoming to create the kind of Bethel community that touches people and adds meaning to their lives. How do we foster the transitions that will help our members who are part of a vibrant Bethel niche community to also feel a part of the synagogue-wide experience. We defined our mission as this: connect, reconnect, and interconnect members of the Bethel family. So, how are we going to do that? We're calling it the Open Door Initiative. Door, of course, having the dual meaning of the English word for door and the Hebrew word meaning generations. So, let's break down our mission. And you're going to hear a theme here: connections. We have 3 points of focus, and luckily for you and us, none of them include us friending each and every one of you on Facebook. The first part of our plan: connect with our new members. We're developing an interest survey that will pair with the current membership application, which right now simply asks for your name and address and that type of information. We'll use the responses from our interest survey to help facilitate connections between our new and our current members. The second part of our plan is to reconnect current but maybe unengaged members to the Bethel family. We'll reach out with that same very brief interest survey to learn more about what you, our current members, are looking for from your Bethel experience. We'll then match folks with people like you all here tonight, active members who are in similar points or stages in their lives. Our third focus is to interconnect our Bethel members across generations, across niche groups. We're not done with our interest survey just yet. We'll be using the responses to interconnect groups within our Bethel family who may not naturally gravitate to one another, but who share similar interests. Whether it's the one-hit wonder type of program, like the recent Bethel Rides event, or the softball team that plays every Sunday in the summer. Both of those programs interconnect members of different ages, backgrounds, and corners of the synagogue. As a former playing member of the softball team and a current cheering member of the softball team, I can say I've met people who I might not have otherwise connected with. Bethel's calendar is currently full of events like that, ones that cater to a wide range of interests. We've mentioned the interest survey several times. It is a pivotal part of our plan. We want to thank the members of the board who graciously took the time to complete our initial survey. Your responses are helping to sculpt our vision. We're looking forward to continuing this process beyond tonight. These connections matter because we know relationships make a difference. Connect, reconnect, and interconnect, because Bethel is you, it is me, it is all of us.
You should have gotten last.
And that was 3 minutes, so that was.
Wow.
3 minutes, 4 sentences.
Shave 4 seconds off. Feedback? Awesome.
That was really good.
Really good.
I mean, that added
Yeah,
Okay.
One thing I thought about as you were talking about the connecting, for example, new to existing or unengaged to active, is I wasn't sure, I was trying to be like a non-engaged, like a person who's never been part of this. Did you mean that you're going to be doing matchmaking, or that you're going to be helping these people become affiliated? It kind of sounded like that you were going to be making a lot of pairs, and not that you were necessarily going to also be shepherding them into, like, let's say they tell you that they like to knit. Like that we don't need to find them a knitting person, we just need to hook them up with the knitsmas. So I just was wondering, have you decided, A, what we're doing with them? Like, are we connecting, is the goal to connect them with a person, or is the goal to connect them?
It's two-part.
Yeah.
So our second focus, correct me if I'm wrong, second focus is, so we have John, an unengaged, obviously, member of the team. But John has three daughters who are given ages up to 16, 17. And so maybe we find, surely there are other families in the congregation who maybe are more active and have similar, like children and that, they're at a similar point in their lives. So just in terms of whether you want to go have coffee or whatever, just engaging
So
with
phases
them.
1 and 2, connect and reconnect, really are about the one-on-one and the
Right.
interconnect. That's how it read, so I wanted to make sure that that's what it was.
Also, we had this other tier that we didn't even get into for time purposes, which was the pitch and promote and personalize the experience to the current members. So really making their membership at Bethel personalized to them, where it might be one of us calling up somebody and saying, hey, Bethel Brides is this Sunday, you want to come meet us or whatever.
I just want to make
Based
sure
on
that's
that
how you
third
wanted
part.
it to read, because that's how it read.
It's also like part 3, the interconnect, and even as we discussed this, there are some things that people might be interested in that we currently don't have a program right now at Bethel. Not that there couldn't be down the road, but we haven't taken it to that level.
But I think to get to your initial question, I'm not in your group, and I hope you don't mind me just
No, please,
tacking
yes,
this
yes.
one point. It's definitely about an individual connection more than it is about a group.
That's what you're
Yeah.
hearing is just.
So, right, so just
That's
getting
what I
that one
heard, so I wanted to
connection
make sure
brings
that that was clearly what you were saying, because if I were not, I might have been going, do you mean you're gonna get them in a committee, or do you mean that you're gonna get them with a person?
Our goal is, I think, in large part, person to person.
Okay, that's what it read as, at least for me, so I just wanna make sure that's what, I wanna make sure that's where we were going.
But I think if I remember your conversations correctly, you're sort of gonna depend on, you're gonna have a conversation with these people and figure in your mind what would be the best way to interconnect them.
Right. It's between parts 2 and 3, it's 2 parts. Parts 2 is more kind of the one-on-one. We happen to share a similar background, similar whatever it is, and that's why we've connected. But part 3 is maybe John loves to knit, and Sharon loves to knit. We wouldn't have paired them necessarily because they're at a similar point in their lives, but over knitting, Sharon could connect and say, hey, we've got a knit spa meeting, this, whatever. So it's a personal reaching out and, and publicizing and pitching this event, but it wouldn't be like their mentor buddy.
Right. Because I guess sometimes the right thing could actually be that they don't even need a mentor buddy, but that there's this nice warm little pocket of Bethel they just didn't know, like, he doesn't know that they meet every Sunday in it.
And I think that's exactly what she's
Right,
saying,
okay.
the third part is going towards, and that's our promoting events to people that might actually be interested that are not necessarily aware of such events going on.
And my second comment was the part where you thanked the board members. I think if you weren't one of us, it would be a little unclear that what you were doing was piloting your survey and that a new version of it is going to be the one that they use. So you might want to just clarify that wording. That thank you to the board, we piloted our survey with the board so that we could finesse our questions and so that we will be using the beta version for the next round.
And did that actually happen? Did board members?
Yes.
Okay,
Some.
No, and we really weren't sure what we were going to, we had other ideas of what we might have done with that information, but in evaluating it, it was really helpful to get.
And we got some good feedback, too.
I wanted to give 3 quick points. One is just historically, I think you need to just give a tiny bit of historical credit to the fact that other surveys have happened in the congregation in the not so distant past. Right, like gauging some of the similar things.
Other members who have talked to them have said, oh, I did one.
Correct.
Right,
So I think
okay.
just to acknowledge that like we're continuing that or some way to do that. Number 2, I was thirsty for an example. And I was thinking, Sharon, about like your Bebe class cohort, as somebody said, right? So like one teeny tiny example of, all these moms who had babies at the exact same time and you've connected and then you've interconnected and you've reconnected. They're not all Bethel, so don't go into that. But, that there's some, just an example. I was sort of thinking like, is there a touch more of something you can offer?
An example of a group
Of
that
how
is.
this has happened, like you used the softball as a great example. I was just looking for like, maybe it's next gen, just one sort of thing to give them that they could say, oh, right, this is already happening, or the seeds have been planted. Just a suggestion. And my last thing I just want to say is we're in the process of getting a new database, and we're sort of being asked the questions of what's important, and this is helpful for me to be able to go back and say, these kind of anecdotal things. I mean, when I meet a prospective member, I keep a Google Doc of everything from, when she's having surgery to where his aunt lives. And that way, we don't really share that. We don't share that info, but we, we're building their character and who they are and what they need. So that will be a great thing once we move forward.
Talking more about it just with Howie even tonight, like, it would be great, like, talking about that database, like if you could even just check off the boxes. So some of our questions were things like, are you interested in sports-related activities or whatever. If Bethel decided we're gonna have a night at the Rock Cats, you would automatically, from our interest survey, have a whole list of people who, in theory, like sports-related activities. No.
Oh.
Are you doing that?
That's the next
In
next
fact,
time.
I love it. We do that. But that kind of thing, you automatically have a pool of people who it's like, you know what, I have this target audience who I can.
And a pool of people who will not be bothered because they are not remotely interested,
Correct,
which
right.
make people feel better. You might actually, I mean, I don't want to make you go over your 3 minutes 4 seconds, but it might be worth mentioning that we are getting a new database, and so that even though we've done interest surveys before, we now have the capacity to, God willing, do something with this data.
Create matches.
Right, we you know,
Personalize your
right,
experience.
right, that we are now finally getting that technological
Did you
ability.
have to look at a membership application?
Yes.
Is this part of what you want to revise as well?
We want to add this interest survey, this brief survey to be a part of it. So when people fill out the biographical and I'm a Levi or a Cohen or whatever, the second page is right there. So they just fill it out as well.
Yeah, cats, man.
So before you leave tonight, I want to show you the application that we just revised. That actually now includes all of that. I'm adding sports on, but let me give you a copy and if you have
Oh, well, I
feedback.
have some other things,
Not up before
I have some
11.
other topics too that people were interested in that I should share this with you. You may want to add.
Okay, so let's talk as soon as we're done. We have to move on to our next one. But thank you guys, that was fantastic. Who's next?
That was good.
I'll be happy to be next.
Go for it.
All right. I don't know how, I mean, my PowerPoint is so basic.
We're gonna move these along, everybody, because we gotta get to our
Amy can help you do the Prezi.
I learned.
Maybe can't help you do it.
keynotes.
If you want to learn how to do the Prezi, she can.
I love doing that. You do yours, and then if you need help with it, I can help you with it.
Oh, perfect.
Not a problem. We learned each other. We connect, we reconnect. We're gonna have T-shirts that say that. Those are coming soon.
Tattoos are on it.
REC.
Ooh, it should be like Connect 4.
Oh, that would be cute. That's good.
That's actually a cute idea.
Oh, well, I'm gonna be home tonight. So I like just doing playing. I like making famous. So.
Yeah, I should agree with
Yeah. Like it goes in and out. So. Brain.
All right. All right,
All right,
let's do it.
so,
Go.
we're terribly excited after that amazing presentation. Yeah, thanks, guys.
She's right, by the way, for CNN, just to
Thanks.
let you know. All right.
Okay, so Jeremy and I had a very good time working with Rabbi Rosen, and we got off to a rocky start. However, we've come up with a fantastic.
Only because Mr. Rabbi Rosen is one of the most difficult people to actually get a meeting with.
That's true. That's true.
Thank you for finishing that
I was
sentence.
gonna say,
Is this part of the presentation?
You get some empty boxes.
I don't think she's got time to
We have to help you. We'll help you pack. It'll be fun.
Don't say that.
So anyways, our project
Was
is
a great career.
that we would like to have a young adult retreat. And so our mission is thus. We would like to have a Bethel facilitated retreat for young adults to help make greater ties and connections to each other or like-minded individuals or others in the area through dynamic programming and a shared Jewish experience.
Yeah, here I go. So the concept behind this, we're looking at actually doing a retreat over Shabbos. It would be from sundown on Friday through sundown, actually Saturday night. I don't think we would do a Saturday night program. It's going to be preferably held at a hotel or resort. We talked about the camp environment, and I feel like it would potentially be a similar group of people who would always attend that. We want it to be a little bit more broad, hopefully somewhat local. The ideal demographic for this is specifically, younger generation, 22 to 35, and we'll get into specifically why we're going to be focusing on that particular demographic. We're going to be looking looking to get some interesting, engaging speakers as like a good draw for this particular event, so that there'll be some interesting, engaging reasons to go. All right. Then we have basically this will also be an opportunity for people to try to actually have a traditional Shabbat in the sense where we would ask that people aren't on their phones and try to do something different for this particular Shabbat. And what that means to you can actually be different, because we'll be thinking about having different types of positive Jewish experiences, not just this service this way and this program here. Certainly a lot of different options. And the most important part is, again, trying to get people to connect with others, because that makes a very big difference.
The idea behind the idea, why you should attend. Once out of college, youth groups, summer camp, it's hard to meet others your own age. You move to another town, you start a new job somewhere. How do you make friends? Friends are made through similar interests and shared experience. However, it's not always easy to do that in the synagogue, and we're finding that this L.E.A.D program is a great way to do it. I made my new best friend right here. This event is designed to facilitate those friendships and connections. And then hopefully it will translate back to a positive Bethel experience.
Why should you go? This is the top 6. This is you.
Okay. Meet other young adults from the greater Rockford area. Sound good? 1. 2, participate in activities, games, and fun. We have some examples. Celebrate and engage and embrace the connection and rituals of the Sabbath and the Jewish community. Hear dynamic young adult speakers and share stories of their re-entry and your re-entry into the after-college world. Also discover some new aspects of Bethel Temple and its community and your Judaism. Take a weekend off, relax, unplug, make new friends.
And then bringing it back to Bethel, obviously I feel like that would be one of the questions. What does it have to do with Bethel, and how can we bring it back here? So we'd also think that if you do attend it, there would be a component where you have an invite to a Shabbat dinner, maybe before the event to meet some people who will be there, and then 1 or 2 after, so we can get them here and continue that experience. And then, this is a trial, so if this is successful, we intend to do other ones, so it could continue. We do have a tentative date. You saw it before. It was the 31st of October through 1st of November. And that concludes our presentation.
4 minutes, 10 seconds.
Well, when it's just Jeremy next week, it won't be so long.
Yeah, it's going to be really quick.
I'm really sad.
All right, there'll be no questions.
Nice job.
No. Do you really have any questions or comments over the fact that I'll keep it short? I'll have it comfortably below 3 minutes.
Well, I thought that was very good. You not only described what you were doing, but it was clear as to why you were doing it and what the follow-up was going to be. I think it would really button it up.
I might suggest just a little statement at the beginning. You kind of get to it at the end, but a little statement in the beginning of what problem you're solving, what thing you're addressing. You jump right to the solution, and you told us why people would want to go, but just a little statement, really brief of, we saw this, and therefore.
No, that's a great suggestion.
Actually, I was thinking about that as the first one, that maybe we want to have some kind of common language that we each use, that the challenge presented to us was, whatever, the challenge was presented to us, how to do this, and then, our solution was this plan. Our solution is to pilot a whatever, so that people can follow the process.
Yeah, I think the first group had, I think you might even look at this blurb that we had.
Yeah.
The first one, I think,
We were
set up.
tasked to have that set up.
Going to the future of Bethel, we were asked to explore.
Right.
Do you think that's something that maybe should be handed out during, so that they see that question and know that all of us are answering it?
Well, it's different answer, it's different questions. So like the thing when you guys picked this one was creating wow moments. How can we have a significant impact on people's lives so they are moved to change?
So we should say that.
Right, I mean, it's something like that. What are I can email this to you. What are the necessary elements to create such a compelling experience? What would it look like if we took people away for 25 hours? It's almost like the beginning of Real World,
Real world.
Right. Yeah.
Is there some kind of an agenda that's handed out at this?
There
Is it
is.
something that
there's
should
an
maybe
annual-
be on there? Because that would also pique people's interest.
Right, we could actually, I believe they're producing it tomorrow in-house. If they haven't already
What do
started.
you guys think?
I may have done it today.
They may have done it today.
I think, I don't think, I don't think it's warming up on the agenda, I do think you have to say it.
Idea.
Or else, Rabbi Garber, you could say it when you introduce them, it's either one or.
But I think each one, each solution is addressing a slightly different problem, even if there's a big umbrella, so I think.
No, I'm saying, as you introduce each of
Oh,
the
each
groups, you could say, this is what the group's challenge was, and
And then
let them talk about the solution.
Okay.
You have to say something about our groups anyway.
Right, I'm introducing each one. Okay, so then I'll start with that and jump in with, yeah.
Okay, so we sent you,
Yes, I have
I
your
sent
looking
you
to the
ours.
future.
okay, great.
I just actually have a technological question. Are we going to merge all of these PowerPoints so that we don't have to boot up and,
Yeah,
plug, between each one? It'd be really nice if we could have them all sequenced.
I have a feeling Amy's gonna redo my PowerPoint.
I need to know, if you want, you think, do you, well,
I'm
everybody else saw it, do you think?
Here's the only thing I
I'm
would
okay
say.
with that.
I don't think it needs to be.
I thought it was good.
Well, that's why I'm saying, I mean, it's different.
There were too many words
Right.
on your PowerPoint.
What I would say is that you want people to listen to you and not to be reading along with what you have.
Keywords only.
Yeah.
Bullets.
Yeah, so,
Bullets.
bullets, what you need, you have, but then, and I would also have someone else, I guess not you, don't yourself run the PowerPoint.
Mhm.
If you have a script, like, if you just mark it where you want us to hit the, next button, like, we can do it, or whatever. But yeah, and one of the things, you can take this however you want.
I can take it.
When we, when we were developing our sort of script for our presentation, we tried to weigh how many details we need to give and what our audience is gonna be next week. And sort of, we have a lot of details that we could give you.
And we're old and we couldn't remember them.
But, who our audience is, who's gonna be there, and do we think, I don't know, just.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest, that was the one thing I thought of during this, was when you were pitching the why you should go. I'm sorry, there's gonna be nobody in your demographic at the annual meeting. And so,
Just don't
That's
say.
very fair.
right, well, no, but also I don't even know if we need that much pitch about what you're gonna see there, rather than more the global picture of what it's gonna be like.
Yeah, totally fair.
Because they're interested that you're doing it.
Yeah, that'll cut at least in there.
Yeah,
There you go.
But that you're creating it as a model.
right,
and then
creating as a model, but
Right.
condensing that down because you're not selling this particular weekend
At this
to
moment.
most of these people.
Sure.
Just make sure you have your date right too, because you said
Yeah, you
like
do.
October 31st, you said the 1st through the 3rd, so just
I don't know that you
figure
can
out
use that.
I
which.
would just say November.
November.
You just say it for November, okay, but if you're gonna say a date, make sure it's the same
Yeah.
date.
This summer.
Yeah.
Fall 2013, whenever it is, in a big
14.
swamp.
14.
Oh, it's 14? Okay, fall
I
2013.
think based on everything that you guys said here, it shows that you really thought about it a lot. And I agree with Lydia, though, and Lois, people just need to know
The key
little,
points.
more the key points, and the details are more what gets worked out in the planning committee.
And I'm not remotely suggesting that Amy should reformat everyone's PowerPoint. I'm just suggesting for technological ease, when we have a 15 to 16-minute time block at the annual meeting, that we don't want to be loading, spending a minute between each one. It's kind of like, on the services, when you have people walking up to FEMA and it kills time for 60 seconds.
No,
you know.
it's not-
And people complain to us all the time about how much time is wasted.
They can both be on, they can both be
Right,
on.
we could just, if we could have them like looped and ready to roll, one PowerPoint with just like with a space in between.
I'm sorry, I had to walk out. It sounded really good, but I got to see it, and I'll look forward to seeing it again. We've got one more group
Yes.
ready to present. I
Who's
forgot,
that?
Carolyn, there are 3 groups, not 4 groups, because I
That makes
forgot.
it even better.
I know,
We may
right.
have 15 extra seconds.
Right, because those are merged. So, yeah, it's only 3 groups.
You got it.
So education is directions,
Right, from 2 different angles, but we kind of in the same place.
The dog chewed up our PowerPoint.
It's
Justin will be.
but Justin will be, that's why I might come and see.
Right.
So, we chose to be a part of the education committee. We're interested in engaging children ages 5 to 8, maybe 4 to 9 too, and post-bar bat mitzvah age kids on a Saturday morning. Our idea came from, Justin would say, Joni Synagogue in Chicago, where they do a Top Shabbat program. And it would be for something that's a little different than the program that is already taking place now, the Shabbat Experience program. Our program would include a little more of picking and choosing what parts of the service we want to do, maybe doing a little ethical discussion about the Torah portion and seeing how we can involve that, like if there's something in the Torah portion, say about bullying, somehow engage it and maybe doing a little role playing with the 5 to 8 year olds so that they understand, this is not acceptable, you're not allowed to bully people, it's not a nice thing to do, kind of thing, but do it on their level. We probably ideally want to do this 2 times a month, but for the fall till January, February, we'll probably start once a month doing it, see how it goes, see how much we get, how many people we can get to come. Now, John will talk about involving the post-bar bat mitzvah leaders.
Right, but in addition to involving them, the other purpose of us setting up this program is, first of all, for the parents as well, for the Saturday morning services, for those parents that have children in that age category. Oftentimes they're not able to make it to services because they don't have anything for their kids to be doing during the services. So that's one of the reasons we're setting that up for these kids, not only to get the educational experience, but also so the parents are relieved of, for an hour or so they can attend the services. But on top of involving the younger students, we also want to try and involve those students that kind of fall out of the whole Hebrew school system that happens after, post-bar and bat mitzvah. Oftentimes, if they don't get involved with the L.E.A.D, I know there's a new name for it. JT Connect. There's a void there until they reach those 20s ages, and so we want to get them involved in a more of a leadership program so we can interact with post-bar and bat mitzvah kids with these youngsters to get them more involved, to create a leadership program. What we would do is try and get a core group, which we call maybe the executive committee, and those would be the teachers that came in, the teenagers that came in and worked with the younger kids. We typically would want to have 2 kids together to work with the younger kids, and then we would have also a staff person and maybe even another adult as well. And we discussed some of the issues and all that Joni discussed. So it turns out that there's definitely, like I said, that void for the teenage kids, and it fills a nice void, and they serve a good purpose, and it also gives them the ability to show some leadership. They're all these kids are once they get to that high school age, are looking for resume builders for their college years, and this is a nice leadership program as well. Okay.
3 minutes, 28 seconds.
Feedback.
So it's going to be John and Justin presenting?
Yes.
Are you going to have a PowerPoint?
It was actually easier to focus.
We might have a poster board.
I think starting with the challenge will help set it up. Starting with we were tasked with this, so we were asked to explore whatever language we want. I think will help sort of get everyone in a frame of mind.
What was the question?
How do we create 21st century learning experiences for children and families that teach both love for Judaism and knowledge of Jewish practices? What can we do to actively engage families in understanding and practicing the core Jewish principles, practices, and values that have withstood the test of time?
Oh, that reminded me what I wanted to ask, if we could somehow work in there. It kind of sounded, especially by referring to a synagogue other than ours, as though there's a vacuum here, and I would hate to have there be an implication because we do have on Saturday morning we have tumbling with Soror every other week, we have, the Shabbat experience, and we have junior, I mean, I'm not, from, tumbling is very successful, the others have had their good moments, their bad moments, but, I liked that notion about that, the wording in that question was something about the engaging families, and I'd love to make that part of it. What's different is that this would be about engaging parents and children in shaping their Shabbat experience, which I think that's what's really cool to me about this, that it's not a hierarchical, a top-down, here's what we're offering you, but here's a Shabbat experience that's brainstormed by the people who are going to experience it.
Is this a revamp of the Shabbat experience? Like, is that a different way to sort of present?
Well-
Because you did mention that there was a Shabbat experience.
Right.
But then you,
what's
I didn't
not-
really know how, I don't know what Shabbat experience is, so I don't know how that differs from what's already there.
Not necessarily, because, Cidra's been doing this for a long time. Okay. It's just to kind of, well, for one, that happens on the 1st and the 3rd of the month. So for the 2nd and the 4th, there's nothing. So,
Actually, I think it's the other way around.
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
for,
the
so
second,
it's something that pairs
It's
with,
enriching.
so that's like two times a month, and then ours would be the other.
So it's complementary.
Right. Ours would be, I would,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to
No, no,
interrupt,
that's
but I
fine.
don't know what the program.
We're trying to bring it to a more like,
21st century,
Yeah.
sort of.
So it's more like the teacher standing in front of the student sitting at a desk kind of?
No,
Yours is more interactive?
no, because I did go to it.
Oh.
It's just that, like, we just want, like, we want the postcard on it for kids. We find that, or I find as being a teacher, that kids tend to connect better with younger
so
people.
your part of the presentation talks about engaging this post-bar mitzvah crowd, right?
Right.
And they're leading what you talked about, right?
Yes.
Personally,
But,
well, it took me a while to understand sort of how it all came together. I think if you lead with that part,
start with that.
you start with this.
I think the brilliant part of this is that you, exactly the reason you merged, you took two problems and you solved them together.
I connect.
And so you wanted
Reconnecting and
to the younger age, and you want to find something for the older ones to do.
Right.
I think
And it didn't go through as long as it could have.
Yeah, I think if you start with your part, and you really drew me in with the, like, I think it's 100% on board with, you will take these kids, they're looking for things to put on their resume, they're
Yeah.
looking for things that will stand out, and you're gonna help this other group by by having them work together.
And so the parents will be dropping the kids off for
Well,
this.
yes and no. See, the parents could drop them off and go to the main sanctuary, or other parents could stay. It's up to them.
I wasn't sure.
And that's the way we can engage the parents with the kids. Because, like, I just know personal experience, like my husband, he wouldn't necessarily go sit in the main sanctuary. But, to sit for an hour maybe would help engage him a little more in learning about.
To add to that idea,
I'm just saying.
if the parents are dropping off, I think what might be helpful for the parents is if you are discussing bullying or some topic that week, to follow up on Sunday with an email or something, or this is what was discussed, or even maybe beforehand, so that to entice parents to come that weekend, the
Right.
parsha this weekend is about, we'll be discussing bullying, it might bring more kids in, and then it's also good as parents to be able to follow up on that discussion.
Well, one idea that we're not going to discuss just because, the time limit, we're not going to get into it. One idea that I do have to talk to Rabbi Rosenbaum about is perhaps, like if we do it the second Saturday of the month, having an option where the kids who are signed up for Sunday school, instead of coming to Sunday school on Sunday, would come on Saturday to this program, and then they don't have to go on Sunday to Sunday school. We're not sure, kind of make it like Saturday school. We're not sure if that would work out, but that's why we're not going to mention it. But that's the way to engage the families again, because it's not you know, the families will bring them and, you know, they're not allowed to leave the building. They can come off, but they
No,
can't.
they gotta go have some fun in the woods.
No, they're gonna, you know, do their own thing. So that's another idea.
Yeah, but at the end, it sort of all came together of what it is.
So
and
we'll
how
start
the
with the
two-
leadership.
I would start with the leadership component, and then that's how you're also gonna engage this younger generation.
And now that you've explained to us too, I also like the notion that it's multi-generational, because the teens are gonna get that component, the kids are gonna benefit from that, and the parents are gonna benefit because now you're saying that we're gonna have a regular presence for appropriate activity for the grown-ups, because they can, you know, it's no longer, oh shoot, I missed week 2, whether I come on week 1 or week 2, there's going to be something in this building for.
Yes, emphasizing complementary programming,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
what's already existing, like, that way it's
What do they
less.
call that program now?
Right.
Right, definitely, and like you mentioned, that you'll mention this to Robbie Rosenbaum, to mention it to Sidra, that she doesn't
Right.
feel threatened by
Right.
this.
The election bot experience is still going to exist. If you want something more, or
Yeah.
there's alternate
We're just
there's going to be this.
Yeah, we're not sure.
Something different.
I don't know if we're gonna keep the Shabbat Experience name, or
Right.
that's something that we're working on to
Right.
decide on the name and maybe a new program to follow,
Right.
whether it's a new Siddur that we use, kid-friendly, or if we make up our own, because I have examples from my synagogue in Chicago.
Right.
Thank you.
These are all great, everybody.
Yeah.
All of us It's going to be fantastic on Tuesday night. It's going to be awesome. So thank you all. And just as a reminder, June 29th, can I just see a show of hands of who is going, did you all get my email? That we would like to honor you with a group L.E.A.D and a lunch afterwards. I'm like looking at her, not you, but Carolyn will be off in some islands in the square. So hopefully enough of you will come and we'll have a lovely, I know you can't be there. Okay, so just so you know, 'cause we know you've worked really hard and it's also a great way
Do you
to
want
just-
us to RSVP?
I'd like you to let me know, yes, so that it's not, you know, I know Justin's coming, so. So it's not poor Justin all by himself representing the group. So, we're gonna move on, but, you know, when we're done, if you've got more things to ask or feedback or all of that, please, let's do that. So I'm gonna begin by, or continue, I suppose, by introducing Lee Newman, whose bio I found on her company's website. So hopefully updated, although I don't think it is. She's senior counsel in individual clients department at Day Pitney. She went to Princeton and UConn Law, and it says you currently serve as the chairman of the Jewish Federation of Greater Hartford. So I know you need to change that. But she was the chairperson of the Jewish Federation of Greater Hartford, and is on the board of trustees of the Jewish Community Foundation. Don't worry, Jesse, I was getting that one in there. Lee is married to Gary Starr, who many of you know, and he's one of our past presidents and a mentor. She likes the golf, and she is well known for her crossword puzzle competitions. She finishes in the top 15%. And so you know the reason we invited Lee here tonight. Oh, and one other very important detail. Next Shabbat, Lee becomes an adult bat mitzvah. Along with Stephanie, Justin's wife, that's true. So the 15th at 9:30, we invite everyone to come here. There are 4 women, and it's really just a remarkable experience to watch them, all from very different journeys getting to that moment. And so we invited Lee here because we wanted to hear really the formal, organized Jewish community and all Lee has to share.
Okay, so you have a few local experts in the room, and I don't want to, that can speak about a lot of this. I think you all know Jesse works at the Jewish Community Foundation. Joni is a past board member of the Federation, and Jody Schwartz is also a current board member of the Federation. So the Federation and the Foundation are well represented here. I could talk for hours, and I promise I won't. I've been involved with the Federation really since I finished law school. I moved back to town about 20 years ago to go to law school, second career. And once I emerged from 3 years of law school, the Jewish Federation was the way I got involved in the Jewish community. Never really thought I would end up chairing it, but there's lots of things that happen that you don't expect. It was very interesting to hear a lot of what you all talked about today and building a community within Bethel, because I think it really take that sort of outside of Bethel and to the greater Hartford area, and that's what the Jewish Federation is really all about at its most fundamental. I probably, if I asked you all what you think the Federation is, my guess is the first answer is, well, they raise money. And it is absolutely true we do, and it is an important part of what we do, but what I like to say is that's not why we're there. The fundraising the Federation does is the fuel that runs the engine. And what the Federation is about is building a Jewish community. And as Rabbi Garber said, it's about the organized part of the Jewish community. We are, the phrase I like to use is we are the convener of the community. There is, as wonderful as every synagogue is, and this one no exception, I actually happen to belong to two, which is another story. It's another story. But a Jewish community is bigger than the synagogue, and we have fabulous institutions in this town. Many of you have different levels of involvement in. I know Jody's not here because she's at the Schechter annual meeting, I think it is. We have 3 terrific day schools, 2 at the lower school level and 1 high school. I bet every one of you has spent time at the Jewish Community Center. Probably, if you don't yet, you will someday have relatives who have needed services of the Hebrew home. I hope you haven't had to call upon the services of Jewish Family Services, but I bet a lot of you know someone who has. Fabulous organizations. The Jewish Association for Community Living provides supports and even residences for developmentally disabled people in our community, including my husband and son. A wealth of fabulous organizations. The 3 Hillels in town, the 3 Hillels we support at Trinity, at University of Hartford, and at UConn. We are one of several federations that supports the UConn Hillel because it sort of touches across the state. All those institutions are part of our community. They all have their own challenges and they all have their own boards and they do all their own thing. The roots of the Federation really were as a communal fundraising organization and took the fundraising burden off the individual institutions. And that time has long passed for a lot of reasons. We still do raise in the $4 to $4.5 million range, which is spent partly on programming and services that the Federation provides, and the rest on making allocations to programs that are run by all these fabulous organizations in the community. But what the Federation also does is think about the community and where we're going. And we've spent a lot of time over the last few years sort of starting with just before I became chair, which is now just about 4 years ago. We've had some consultants in to sort of to think about, what does our Jewish community need to look like in 20 years and how are we going to get there? So that's the kind of work that can't be done by any one institution. You need an umbrella organization that can step outside and that can say, something, and I don't mean to pick on any, but XYZ agency, you're doing this now and that's great, but you need to come here. And maybe it's, in the past we've done things like had team focus groups, not focus group, working groups, where we look at different organizations in town that provide services to similar groups and look how they coordinate and complement each other and can actually foster synergy by bringing folks together. So that's a function that can't exist inside any organization. It needs to really bring a community perspective, and that's what the Federation does. We also, many of you may be familiar with the L.E.A.D program. Lois can tell you all about that. That is a program that is run by the Federation. A fabulous program that we do is the Jewish Community Relations Council, which is sort of our public affairs arm. We are the spokesman when there are crises either in the community or around the world. The JCRC really is the Jewish voice of the Hartford area. They're also involved in things like the Hunger Seder and some fabulous programs like that. All of which we need folks' help. And if the work that you've been doing here is whetted your appetite and you'd like to step out beyond, not instead of, but in addition to, we are really trying to get people, and Jody can talk to that, Jody, get people, like you all involved. I think you'll find it very rewarding. The right hand to the Federation's left hand, whatever, is the Jewish Community Foundation. That used to be called the Endowment Foundation. The Community Foundation now manages north of $85 million in assets for the benefit of the entire Jewish community in a variety of funds. Bethel's endowment resides with the Jewish Community Foundation, so a big part of what the foundation does is steward the community's money. There are a variety of kinds of funds at the Community Foundation, and we don't have time to really talk about what all that means. If some other time, I'd love to do that. But there are funds that benefit individual agencies. There are funds that kick out money to the Federation's annual campaign every year, and there is about $800,000 worth of income coming from funds that are distributed in the discretion of the board of the Community Foundation. And what they try to do, and it's an evolving target, is really look at ways to use that money to transform the Jewish community and again look to the future. And the last thing I would just mention, just to give you an idea of what goes on, the Foundation and the Federation together are in the process of launching what I think is a very exciting initiative. It's been talked about for a long time, and we finally just decided to do it. And that is a community-wide endowment campaign, trying to raise money both for present endowment, and if you're not familiar with the term, essentially what endowment funds mean, the principal is going to sit in an account and the income is available to be distributed. So it is a big old savings account, a lot more sophisticated than that. They also they promote legal legacy and using legacy gifts in people's wills and other kinds of testamentary, which is actually what I do in my day job. So the Federation and the Foundation together are spearheading a community-wide endowment foundation, sort of led by those two organizations, but involving north of 25 different institutions in the community, including Bethel, including all the major non-synagogue institutions and most of the synagogues as well, looking to both grow the endowments of those institutions as well as looking for ways to innovate and change in the community. I don't know how much you touch on sort of the financials, but every organization, I mean, it struggles. In the nonprofit world, it's not just Hartford, it's not just Jewish nonprofit, struggles to raise money every year. Fees don't cover everything. You try to raise money. You spend a lot of time doing that. The best way to free things up and free brain power and time is to have a steady source of income. And the more we can build our endowment, and the more we can build that savings account, the more we can focus our energy on new and exciting things. So after a lot of talk, the two organizations are spearheading this effort, and we're really excited both about the possibility of growing the base of the endowment, as well as the kind of new innovative thinking that's coming out of it and how to change the community, and the kinds of donors that maybe have not been so interested and said, it's the same old thing, I'm tired of it, I don't want to be a part of it, and we're really sparking some new interest. So I'll take a breath, I'll stop. Thank you for letting me. Any questions? Or no questions tonight?
Any questions for Lee?
Just a comment that the David Brightman program that we went to was sponsored by the Commission on Jewish Education and Leadership, which is a
federation. Is the federation. There's lots of little secrets there people don't connect left and right. So Lois, thank you for mentioning that.
I just learned a whole lot. I've been in this community for so long, and I just learned a whole lot in that 10 minutes that I really had no idea about what your organization did or yours.
Right.
So,
terrific. Thank you.
Thank
you. Well, like I said, that was really scratching the surface, so happy to continue the conversation.
I do have to say, I just wanted to make a comment, because I do think that the Federation has a bad rap from its previous incarnations, when all it was about money, but many organizations in the community would not exist if it were not for Federation. So when we all support Federation, or when we get that phone call, it's really many organizations that are being helped through contributions.
Absolutely, and there's so much out. I goes back a few years now, but for a long time, one of the things we struggled with was how to bring that very distant place called across the mountain into the Jewish community. And there certainly are many Farmington Valley members here, but it is still far away. They don't feel engaged. They don't have the institutions there. There were countless false starts. And somebody had the bright idea about 10 years ago, sponsored by the Federation, to have a forum on the Farmington Valley. It was identified through the population study that we did back in 2010 that this really is a group that's not being met, so not being served. And we brought all the major institutions together and said, okay, what do you got? And the start of that turned into a task force that was headed by Mel Simon, that led to focus groups in the Farmington Valley, because one of the problems was we were trying to tell them what they wanted, as opposed to asking them, it's a novel concept. And the result of that was something called the Phi Center, which the Federation ran for quite a few years, and it's now, we turned over the day-to-day management of it to the JCC, but that wouldn't exist if not for directly for the Federation. We then lots of indirectly, but that's, and anybody, I don't know if any of you are from the Farmington Valley, but that really, it's now an institution without walls, but they do regular programming. Probably their best known is the Mother's Circle, which is a terrific program designed for women who are not Jewish but raising Jewish children. And it's really a fabulous program. So.
And so much more to say. Thank
So
you.
much.
Thank you. So we move from hearing Lee's presentation of the formal Jewish community and organized and what it offers to this gentleman.
There's no gentleman, there's a crucifix.
Sorry. I thought it was a very difficult rabbi to just So Bruce Stanger went to the University of Hartford and started a career in electrical engineering, then went to law school at the Western New England College School of Law. Is this correctly? You are still president-elect of the Rotary Club?
No, I'm past president.
Past president.
You see, mine's old
You also
also.
need to go onto your website and update your bio. I'm kidding. I so much as blink and I update the bio on the website.
They don't let me update
He
it.
is.
They don't let me update it. I have to go through 6
Well, right,
channels.
I have to go
Big
through
first.
6 channels. So Bruce is on or at some point was on the executive committee of the Jewish Federation of Greater Hartford, president at one point of the Solomon Schechter Day School, a participant in the Wexner Heritage Foundation Leadership Program, former chair of the Commission of Jewish Education, which now is in leadership that we were just talking about, has run the Israel Ride, which is a 350-mile bike ride in Israel, and he enjoys reading road races, bike racing, and participating in area triathlons. And there's more to Bruce's story, but that's actually why he's here to talk, so I'm going to let him tell the rest.
So that's the official word. The official word is that I've been president of various organizations, and I've been on a lot of boards. I've probably held every officership at some of those organizations because you move through the ranks. I'm an old guy, I've been around a while. But when I was in my late 30s, beginning of 40s, things were a little different. I was in leadership, but I was a little bit of the bad boy. And I'm going to tell you 3 quick stories and 1 longer story about how you can be the bad boy and you can make a difference in the community. And what I thought about as I was doing this, and what Lois pointed out to me as I told her what I was going to say, is that what really gave me the opportunity to be the bad boy was that I already was moving through leadership in all of these institutions. I was already Federation Executive Committee. I already was chair of the CJE. So I was in a position of some authority. And when I saw a problem, as you'll see, so here's the 3 quick stories. And I want you to judge me at the end. Was I outside or within the organized Jewish community? Should I be proud or embarrassed? And this is going, and I'm going to let my daughter see this, so that'll be good. The longest story, there's 3 short and 1 long. The longest story is about the airplane school. I was told by the community, it's a Jewish school, you'll hear about it in a moment. I was told by the community that you cannot start that school in our community because one of the organizations has had the brochure to start that school for 5 years sitting in a drawer. And my answer was, we'll have it up in 5 months, and you'll hear about it in a bit. The National CRC announced to all CRCs, you shall not send a bus to this emergency Israel demonstration going on at the, in Washington, because there's a concern about violence and liability. And I was told that if I wanted to organize, I better not organize those buses. I was told that I must include a specific organization in a program that we were sponsoring at the CRC, because that organization was having some trouble with the area rabbis, and that organization, since the area rabbis were going to be involved in the program, I was told that we have to have that organization in the program.
Define CRC.
Community Relations Council, that's the one that Lee mentioned. And when we were planning to start a synagogue consulting program, which is L.E.A.D, we were told that we are not permitted to start L.E.A.D because it's going to be started later as part of a program. So the short ones. The buses needed to be organized to go to support Israel, as far as I was concerned. I was involved in some organization that gave me a lot of authority to do things, and when the CRC said that there cannot be any buses, this small organization started just renting one bus at a time until we filled all the buses, and we sent 5 buses. And we put at risk the organization that we were part of because of this concern about the liability, but we did it. Right or wrong, I don't know. The program that we were told that we should not start was a program that later became the teach-in. Most of you won't know that because it doesn't exist now, but it lasted for about 10 or 12 years. Once a year, the rabbis would all get together and teach a class on a Saturday evening, and then the whole community would come. And we felt that we couldn't include that other organization because that other organization had just had a big argument with all the rabbis, and if we had included it, some of the synagogues said they wouldn't be part of it, and we were told that they wanted us in it. They wanted to be in it. And the synagogue consulting thing, L.E.A.D, there was a big thing being rolled out, and we were ready to start the predecessor to L.E.A.D, and the community wanted to wait. They thought they'd get it done in the next year. It took them 3 or 4 years. So while I was doing all of these positive things within the organization, I was also something of a bad boy. And the message that I think Rabbi Garber wanted me to deliver is that sometimes you need to speak out, and you need to take something somewhere that you think it needs to go. The longer story, the airplane school. I was privileged to be in a leadership program that involved education that went for 2 years. It's called the Wexner Leadership Program. In fact, it's coming back and with all hope to this community, which you may know about because I know how it's getting funded. It's a 2-year program of education. It's all expenses paid. You go to Israel, you do all kinds of traveling. It's an amazing, amazing program. So 4 of us were on a plane traveling back from one of those programs, one of those weeks away. We were in Tahoe. It was myself, my wife Linda, Tom, and Donna Devine. I don't know the participants here. Well, you'll know Tom Devine because he was head of the foundation. We're on that plane, and we decided we wanted to start this program, something similar to it here. And it became what's called Beit Midrash, which went for almost 20 years. It was started in 1990 when I was 39, and it went till just recently, and it may be back again. And the problem was that one of the organizations in the community had been thinking about doing it for a long time. And we knew that we would get it started in a few months. And they had been talking about doing it for a long time. And they really wanted us not to do it because they wanted to do it through that agency. And what we knew at the time was that to do it through an agency took process. Now the good news is that we got it started within the 5 months, and it went for 20 years and graduated hundreds of graduates. The bad news is, because we weren't part of the community, it didn't build a level of support of board members and professionals and others that were involved in it. So it became sort of a renegade, not a renegade, it was a negative, it was considered positive by the community, but it became an organization that was outside the community. So while the other 3 items, one of them got started early, L.E.A.D, and then it went, but it went because the community picked it up. And we were able to pull it off because at the time I was the head of the CJE, and the CJE had been planning it for a while. And while the bus trip was a one-time shot, doing things within the community is wonderful because it builds community and makes things last. But taking your own little rebellious bad boy kind of thing out at some point isn't bad either. So if you find something that you really want and you really think needs to happen, you'll find support by being within the community. This is what Lois told me today when I was talking about this. By being in the community and being on the boards and being involved in all those things, you're going to meet the people that allow you to do it, to bring it forward in a way that you wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. Even if the organized community or the head of one of the agencies or someone is saying, no, you shouldn't do that. So I fully support Federation. I fully support the foundation, which we just increased our fund recently. But I also fully support, and I think you should think at times about how you're going to make something happen that someone may be trying to stand in your way and find a way to make it happen. So that's my message. The message.
That works. Questions for Bruce?
Do you regret any of those choices?
I do. The one on L.E.A.D, although the head of the agency, the head of the, I forget what he was, I don't want to use his name, came to me 3 years later and said, you know, you did the right thing. I felt bad afterwards that I had just moved ahead without. With Beit Midrash, I have some sense that if I had done a better job of putting together a board, the Federation kept asking me every year, don't you want money? And I kept saying every year, no, money's not my problem, because money was very easy for us to get because we had a cadre of graduates, some of which were quite wealthy, and I could ask them for $5,000 to $10,000. We didn't need a lot of money. It was run largely by volunteers. But yet if I had spent the time to develop a board, and if I had gone into the Federation system, and I had been financed by the Federation or the endowment foundation, then maybe the burnout that occurred with a few of us, or me primarily, that was running it, wouldn't have happened, and the school would still be open. And it may be that.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. It's a good question. So I asked you a question at the beginning. I don't really expect you to answer, but it's an interesting one that I think about sometimes as I reflect back at what I did largely in my 40s, when I was more engaged in this, as to whether what I did was right or was it wrong. And that's why I asked that question.
Well, I guess it was right for you at the time, and nobody gets them all right all the time, and it depends on who's defining what's right and wrong. And at one point in your life it's right, another point you say maybe it wasn't. But there's no absolutes.
And some of them, no one was attacked on the bus trip.
No one was attacked on the bus trip,
You know,
thankfully.
You're able to, the issue, the concerns, the liability, the safety.
Right.
People say it didn't happen, so in the end it was the right decision, but.
And we brought hundreds of people from Harvard. There were thousands of people at this march. It was amazing.
And I think your 4 stories, were really, 4? It's 4.
4 stories.
Your
Yeah.
4 stories set a good example of how we need to be a little less afraid to take risks. And that if you try something and it doesn't work out, at least you can say you tried it. Because sometimes there will always be people who will tell us that our ideas are not good. But if you can find a team of people to work with, a lot of times you can prove that your ideas do have merit.
And every email or letter I've ever sent on behalf of the Jewish committee and the community, and there's been hundreds, if not thousands, has always ended with, together we make a difference. And that's really, even though these were things where they were launched off in different directions, they were done with other people that I had met through the involvement in the community, and I know that together we do make a huge difference when we work together to make change.
Another takeaway I get from your story is that other resistance you get from people's lifetimes, we tried it and it didn't work. Every time, and by generation it could be a 3-month later generation, it's a different world, it's a different group of people. Something that languished for 4 or 5 years, and people might have said, it's clearly not working, if it worked we would have gotten it off the ground by now. A different cohort of people with a different fresh set of eyes made it happen. So it's good argument for the people who, you know, want to always think of the reasons why something couldn't happen.
I was on the first leadership community training for 10, 12 years ago, presidents and agencies, and the community felt that Bethel, Beth Israel, Manuel didn't get along. I was meeting presidents, and they said, you know, this was really terrific, we should do something together. And people said, Bethel, Manuel, Beth Israel, they never worked together. So we said, let's do something for the community, and do something non-confrontational, Israel. So we had a weekend called Live on Israel.
Oh, that's right.
On Friday, we had a service in Emmanuel. Saturday morning, we came here, Rabbi Rosen. We had a speaker from Israel, Beth Israel. We could have a sort of a dinner and a party Saturday night. And then Sunday morning, we had a breakfast here. The Ledger just couldn't believe it. They said, these temples are working together. They gave us publicity. It was a tremendous event. Because the presidents, we met, we studied together for 2 years, and it could happen. So this is a positive example. You know, people said we couldn't do it, we were challenged, and it was a real great experience. We not only the presidents got together, but committees and all, the connection, the interconnection from the it was there.
And look at how that's changed our community from 6 shoals in a dinner, right? We've had several programs where now we're up to, I think, 13 shoals involved, and several locations having Shabbat dinner and programs, and going into an Orthodox synagogue and also having an egalitarian service, or doing Havdalah at Israel. I mean, really working together. That's, you know, just a small drop. 3 synagogues working together in a weekend, and look what now our community has become. Well,
The other thing that I've learned, I think Bruce, you spoke to as well, is that setbacks aren't necessarily a bad thing. You know, if your life doesn't have a few failures in them, then maybe you're not stretching yourself enough. And as long as they're not catastrophic failures, but I've had a few catastrophic failures, and you know, they hurt when they happen, but you do come back, and you do grow, and you do, you know, reach different heights. So don't be afraid to try something just because people are saying don't do it. You know, maybe they were right, maybe you shouldn't have done it, but you know what, you learned something and you tried something. Nobody died in Ellsworth.
That went great.
And there's an echo of something, a couple of things that Chaim Henry said in our first meeting a couple months ago, and that was the congregation for synagogues as being a platform for something unique and really exciting that really can encourage this spirit of innovation that we're all looking to achieve, which obviously the groups are trying to do. I was new to the community when that first teaching took place, and I walked into the sanctuary after being hardly able to get through the doors. 700 people of every walk of life were in our sanctuary for storytelling and Havdalah, and then breaking out into all sorts of different groups. It was unbelievable. And that was the kind of thing that we would never have seen without somebody having an innovative idea. I think integral to what you were saying was that you were a part of things. You were known, you could be trusted, you gave of yourself to others, and you brought people forward. And it's an expression of the idea of machlok at Shem Shamayim. It's a worthwhile thing to argue about, even those who oppose you, as opposed to the trivialities that sometimes we get involved in. And another point that Chaim makes continuously is, you know, what is it that is different between a great TV show or movie and a Jewish community board meeting or other kind of meeting? And it's the element of healthy conflict or tension. You don't know, the suspense is there, you don't know how something's going to turn out ahead of time. If everything seems to be a rubber stamp of the inevitable, or a kind of a focus on just, you know, side issues, if that's how it's perceived, it's not quite as exciting as a cliffhanger. And having something that is exciting, that brings a sense of really shaping Jewish destiny. Sometime I hope you'll speak to this group about the influence, for example, of an L.E.A.D in your life. I have never forgotten the stories you've told us about it. You know, having a huge impact by a personage that has made a difference in the entire Jewish world, and knowing that in some way we carry that kind of thing forward. And I think we all have that, hopefully, that sense that in our hands we also have that capacity. Keep on working.
I'm not looking for cliffhanger board meetings.
Well, a little bit.
No, it's exciting.
Just a little bit.
Well, I do want to close with just some words from her Campbell, from the Ethics of the Sages, that I'm hoping will give us a sort of focus as we continue. And there's a lot to digest here. So again, thank you to Lee, thank you to Bruce, thank you to our mentors and officers for joining us tonight. But really, thank you for these presentations. Thank you all for putting together these presentations. I just feel such hope and such excitement and such like, wow, like let's just have this be the boardroom table and there you go, right? And like fast forward 20 years and 10 years, God willing. I was gonna say not 20, sorry. 5, can I join your 5? And you know, what a beautiful picture it really is, and such great vision. And so it's not goodbye, it's just see you on Tuesday, and we'll continue this learning. But Hillel taught, do not withdraw from the community. There's going to be a lot of little pearls of wisdom here. Take them as you will. Do not withdraw from the community. Do not be sure of yourself till the day of your death. Do not judge your fellow human being till you stand in his or her situation. Do not say it is not possible to understand this, for ultimately it will be understood. And do not say, when I have leisure, I will study. For if you are a Jewish board member or any kind of worker, you will never have leisure. And on that note, thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And please take some food. And remember to keep doing things in schmoozing.